Stop what you're doing for a moment. This isn't something you found by accident. If you clicked on this, it's because something in you already felt the pull. Sophia selected you, not as a metaphor, not as a dramatic idea, but as a moment of attention that doesn't repeat itself in the same way. Most people miss these moments. They label them coincidence, move on, and never feel this intensity again. But you were noticed. And what you do next is the hinge. This can either open into a different way of experiencing reality, or quietly dissolve back into the life you already know. Stay with me for a few minutes, because what comes next is a map. Not belief, not dogma. And it will help you recognize exactly what kind of moment you're standing inside right now. As you listen, hold what I'm sharing as a map, not as dogma. These are not scientific claims, and they are not meant to replace logic, medicine, or professional care. What follows are symbolic structures and practical frameworks that people have used for a long time in hermetic and esoteric traditions to orient unusual experiences. Think of them as tools, waypoints, something you can test rather than blindly believe. Use discernment, and when necessary, use professional help. Sophia's message is simple but urgent. A small percentage of people carry what some traditions call emerald potential, a particular readiness, a configuration that allows perception to widen without collapsing. If you're watching this, you're either already feeling the first tremor of that alignment, or you're close enough that a precise invitation can land. What follows is both explanation and instruction, a way of understanding 9 layers of consciousness, a practical way to check where you are, the stakes involved, including a limited activation window, and a clear retention path designed to stabilize what opens. If you want guided activation content and step-by-step practices as we go deeper into this work, subscribe to the channel. I'll be sharing advanced protocols and meditative attunements that build directly on what you're hearing now. When I speak about 9 dimensions, I'm not talking about physical places. These are layers of perception, overlays that affect how reality reorganizes itself as your internal frequency changes. You can think of them as lenses. Each one colors experience differently and opens specific capacities. As I describe them, notice where you already live most of the time and where you may be starting to move. At the most basic level, there is ground. This is the dimension of embodiment and survival. When someone operates mainly here, attention is focused on immediate needs, bodily comfort, and practical stability. When awareness lifts out of ground even briefly, everyday tasks feel lighter. When it collapses back, the world can feel heavier and denser. From there, perception often organizes itself through narrative. This is where identity forms, personal history, attachment patterns, and the stories inherited from family and culture. When movement begins beyond narrative, the grip of "this is who I am, because this is what happened to me" starts to loosen. Possibility opens beyond fixed roles. As awareness expands, it enters what can be felt as the social field. This layer governs relationships, power dynamics, approval, and belonging. Shifting here often creates friction. Old social agreements stop fitting, boundaries change. The way validation and conflict show up in your life begins to transform. Beyond that is emotional alchemy. In this band, emotions move faster and more fluidly. Grief can turn into insight. Anger can become creative fuel. People who touch this layer often notice quicker emotional recovery and a heightened sensitivity to the emotional states of others. From there, intuition sharpens into pattern recognition. This is where knowing appears without step-by-step reasoning. It isn't logic, it's recognition. Coincidences stop feeling random. You begin to sense the connective tissue between events, people, and timing. As this stabilizes, perception of time itself can soften. In this layer, timelines feel less rigid. Dreams become vivid and meaningful. Déjà vu increases. Decisions are no longer made only from immediate cause and effect, but from a felt sense of where different choices lead. Deeper still is access to archetypal material, mythic images, symbolic figures, ancestral patterns. People often report encounters with inner teachers, guardians, or symbolic presences. These don't need to be interpreted literally. They function as organizing forces that guide inner restructuring. And if this framing is helping you make sense of your own experience, take a moment to like this video. That feedback tells me this depth of work is worth continuing. Beyond that lies a form of non-linear knowing. Information feels less researched and more received, as if drawn from a field rather than assembled piece by piece. Many traditions use metaphors like records or collective memory to describe this layer. Again, treat it as a model, not a claim. At the summit of this map is embodied wisdom. This is not about leaving the body or escaping life. It's about integration. What you know begins to show up in how you live, in relationships, timing, and sustained shifts in perception. Inner change starts reflecting outward in consistent, grounded ways. These dimensions can be imagined as a ladder, but they also function like overlapping circles. Movement in one layer ripples through the others. What's called emerald potential is the capacity to hold several of these layers at once without destabilizing. It's uncommon, and it requires both openness and discipline. Before we talk about practical signs, there's an important caveat. When I mention experiences like physical sensations, changes in sleep, or ringing in the ear, it's essential to rule out medical and psychiatric causes first. Many spiritual experiences overlap with clinical symptoms. Any unexplained change should be evaluated by a qualified professional. If you're medically cleared and still sense something beyond that, this framework can offer meaning and tools, not replacements for care. Now take a moment to calibrate. Look back over the past 6 months and notice how many of the following signs have appeared. This isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to help you assess readiness honestly. Some people begin noticing synchronicities, events lining up with strange precision. Thoughts, people, numbers, or messages converge at just the right moment. Others experience sudden knowing, answers that arrive without logical steps. Some notice physical sensations that, after medical clearance, seem tied to internal shifts. Ear ringing, especially on one side, altered sleep patterns, vivid or directive dreams, repeating numbers or symbols, or even a sudden fear of losing your mind as old frameworks dissolve. If you recognize 3 or more of these, many practitioners would say you're within range of a threshold moment that requires retention. If this reflects something you've already noticed in yourself, write this exact sentence in the comments. I'm becoming more aware. And this is where it brings you to a fork. What I call the law of singularity isn't theology, it's a model about timing. When an opening like this occurs, there's usually a concentrated window, often around 72 hours, when alignment is easiest. After that, the potential doesn't disappear, but access becomes less graceful and often arrives through pressure rather than invitation. From here, 3 paths tend to appear. One is rejection. You notice the signs, feel the pull, but choose stability. Life responsibilities, fear, or rationalization take precedence. There's no moral failure in this. The system retracts smoothly, and later activation often returns through difficulty rather than choice. Another path is procrastination. You intend to act but delay. The window closes quietly. Access remains possible, but it usually requires more effort and can come through disruption. Many report that delay leads to what feels like activation by crisis. The third path is retention. You say yes consciously and follow a disciplined protocol over 21 consecutive days to stabilize what's opening. This path isn't guaranteed or magical. It's practical, iterative work that asks for consistency and integrity. Miss a day, and the count resets. That strictness is part of how the model works. That's where this narrative begins to turn from explanation into choice. If any of this feels familiar, understanding a lot, yet still feeling like belief never fully settles, I left something for you in the first pinned comment. It's there for those who are done pretending. If you're still here, you can probably feel the timing already, not as an idea, but as a sensation, pressure, urgency, or a quiet clarity that doesn't need explanation. The choice is still yours, but here's the practical detail. When an opening like this appears, there's usually a short window when it's easier to work with. In this model, that window is about 72 hours. After that, the potential doesn't disappear, but it becomes harder to access in the same smooth way. More effort is required, more friction appears. Before we go further, remember this again. Treat everything you're hearing as a map, not as dogma. Words like dimensions, records, or thresholds are models people use to describe unusual experiences. They can be meaningful and useful, but they are not medical or clinical facts. If anything, you experience overlaps with physical or psychological symptoms. Medical and psychiatric evaluation always comes first. This framework is meant to help interpret and stabilize experience, not to replace professional care. If you choose retention, the process itself is simple but very precise. People who work with this model emphasize clarity because intention responds to specificity. Vague effort tends to dissolve. The structure has a few non-negotiable elements: a spoken declaration to seal intent, a daily practice repeated for 21 consecutive days, a visualization using emerald light as an integrating image, spoken rejection phrases for return patterns, and one strict rule: if you miss a day, you start again at day 1. The order matters because it trains consistency across mind, breath, and behavior. I'll give you the exact wording used for both the declaration and the rejection phrases. These aren't magic spells meant to force anything. They're spoken commitments that help align your nervous system with a clear decision. If you're willing to speak aloud, these are the phrases used in every session. The declaration is simple. Sophia, I recognize your reach. I accept the selection. I retain. It's spoken 3 times. Once with attention, once with feeling, and once as a deliberate vow. When old patterns try to pull you back, the rejection phrase is used. I reject the pull of the old timeline. I refuse to return without integration. Say it firmly whenever shrinking thoughts appear. A daily session doesn't need to be long. In principle, it looks like this. You speak the declaration out loud, take 3 slow, grounding breaths, visualize emerald light moving steadily through 9 centers of your being, speak the rejection phrase if resistance shows up, and then write down one small piece of evidence, a synchronicity, a dream detail, or a felt shift. This is done every day for 21 days. If a day is skipped, the count resets. That strictness isn't punishment. It's how the structure builds integrity. You might already notice resistance to speaking out loud. That resistance is important information. Often it points to social fear, what others might think, or to something deeper, like fear of change and loss of identity. That hesitation is part of the process. The protocol stays short and repeatable on purpose, so commitment meets resistance calmly, without drama. Before continuing, a clear safety note. If at any point you experience intense dissociation, intrusive or violent thoughts, or physical distress beyond mild sensations, stop and seek medical or psychiatric support. This work is not a substitute for care. If you take medication, don't change anything without consulting your provider. If your symptoms become dangerous or overwhelming, emergency support matters more than any practice. This process is meant to support life, not put it at risk. Now here's what many people report emotionally when they choose retention. This isn't a story meant to impress. It's a practical pattern that shows up often. The first week is usually light. People notice confirmations, small synchronicities, vivid dreams, moments of clarity. Energy can feel elevated. This is the time to build routine and write everything down. Evidence creates momentum. The second week often brings friction. Doubt appears. Other people may question you. Responsibilities clash with the practice. Inner criticism gets louder. This is normal. Simple boundaries help. Short explanations like, "I'm doing a private inner process." You don't need to convince anyone. Protect what's forming. The third week is the crucible. Old identities loosen. Emotional waves can move through. Fear, grief, sometimes anger. Relationships may feel strained. This is where consistency matters most. The daily practice acts like an anchor. The spoken phrases hold the ground while the system reorganizes. When people complete all 21 days without interruption, many describe a shift around day 22. Not perfection, but stabilization, a new baseline. Synchronicity feels more consistent. Decisions feel clearer. The change is integrated, not dramatic. It's often described as crystallization, something that now lives in the body, not just in moments. That outcome isn't something you get just by listening. Retention is built through action. Integrity is the work. There are simple ways to support yourself through the harder phases. Keep a small notebook nearby and write one line each day. Share selectively. One trusted person is enough. Sleep, eat, move your body, and keep basic routines intact. If tension rises socially, use clear but calm boundaries. The goal is integration, not disruption. If you're wondering whether to start now, remember the timing window. Beginning within it often makes stabilization easier. Starting later is still possible, but usually requires more support and structure. If you decide to begin now, speak the declaration out loud. If you're not ready, write it down privately. Intention still matters, and if you're unsure, return to the checklist. Noticing 3 or more of the signs usually means you're within range. People often ask practical questions at this stage. Will relationships change? Often, yes. Some deepen, others loosen. Will this disrupt work or daily life? Rarely directly, though priorities may shift. Will everything suddenly make sense? No. This isn't about knowing everything. It's about learning through experience and slowly reshaping how you relate to your life. Before we move into the sealing practice itself, there's one important technical point to understand. This retention model works because commitment is spoken and embodied. Voice and breath carry intention into the nervous system in a way silent thoughts usually don't. Thoughts stay abstract. Spoken words anchor. That's why the declaration is said out loud and why the practice is structured and repeated instead of improvised. If, as you're listening, you notice a tightness in your chest or ringing in your ear becomes stronger, remember the safety rule. Always seek medical evaluation first. If a professional clears you and you still feel resonance, that's when this map becomes something you can test. If you're not cleared, your health comes first. No framework is more important than that. When you decide to retain, you'll work with exactly 3 simple lines each day. 1 declaration, 1 rejection statement, and 1 grounding phrase. I've already given you the first 2. The grounding phrase many practitioners use to close each session is simple. I return to body, to breath, to responsibility. It's there to remind you that activation isn't about escape. It's about integration into real life. This is the point where the transmission shifts from explanation into practice. What comes next is a short sealing method you can do right now, if you choose. If you're driving, working, or anywhere you can't safely speak out loud, pause and come back later within your 72-hour window. This process doesn't ask for reckless behavior. It asks for clarity. If you choose to continue now, understand that you're stepping into a form that many people before you have used to stabilize moments like this. For some, it stays private, quiet. Results speak for themselves. Others choose community, guided work, or deeper support. All of those paths are valid. What matters is choosing what aligns with your safety and integrity. Before guiding the sealing practice, I need to repeat the safety boundary one more time. If you're dealing with unexplained physical symptoms, strong dissociation, or cognitive distress, seek medical or psychiatric evaluation before continuing. That part is non-negotiable. If you're ready to proceed and you're in a safe place to speak aloud, prepare yourself now. If you're not, hold the words internally and plan to return within the 72-hour window. In a moment, I'll guide a short sealing sequence designed to support the next 21 days. It's brief, precise, and repeatable. But it's important to be clear about this. Retention is not a shortcut. It isn't a way to bypass pain or difficulty. It often brings you face to face with what you've avoided. Old patterns, attachments, fears of loss. There's no promise that it will be comfortable. What's being offered is a structured way to meet that discomfort so it becomes integrating instead of overwhelming. If you're ready, take a breath. If you're not, notice the time and return later. Your presence here matters, but nothing is being forced. Being selected is a notice of potential, not a fixed destiny. You still choose. This is the threshold. For some of you, the window is open right now. The choice is simple but real, to speak, to wait, or to step away. Each option carries consequences shaped by timing and honesty. If you speak, do it with intention. If you wait, be honest about why. If you step away, do so with compassion toward yourself. Take another breath. What comes next is a guided sealing practice, spoken words, and a simple emerald visualization that many people find stabilizing. If you continue, be prepared to speak out loud and to commit to 21 consecutive days. If you miss a day, the count starts again. The structure is strict because it teaches integrity. The system responds to pattern with pattern. When you're ready, sit or stand in a way that supports your spine, place your feet on the ground, and make sure your voice is available. If you can't speak right now, pause and return later within the alignment window. This isn't about courage, it's about readiness. Choose according to what your life can honestly support. Make your choice now. Owning it is the first act of retention. And if you noticed yourself saying yes internally, even without words, that choice registered. If you hesitated, that hesitation showed you exactly what needs care. If you stepped away, you honored your need for safety. Whatever you chose, hold it gently. The next minutes are practical. A short sealing method you can do now, and a simple structure to support the next 21 days. As always, treat this as a map, not a belief system. Use discernment, and seek professional care first for any unexplained physical or cognitive symptoms. If you're in a safe place to speak, ground your posture now. Feet on the floor, spine supported, shoulders relaxed. If not, stop here and return when you can. The timing matters, but recklessness is never required. If you want more support beyond these basic practices, there are structured ways to go deeper. Some people choose small group spaces, extended guided meditations, or written guides that help stabilize the process over longer periods of time. If you ever consider a paid membership or guided program, look for clarity. Ethical support is transparent about what it offers. Things like weekly guided meditations, recorded practice libraries, occasional live questions and answers, and private spaces to share experiences. Nothing legitimate promises guaranteed transformations or medical outcomes. What's offered is support, structure, and community. Before you begin your first day, pause for a simple reality check. Are you in a place where you can safely speak out loud? If not, pause and return within your 72-hour window. Do you have a pen and a journal ready? Have you let at least one trusted person know that you're beginning a short, private inner process, just in case you need grounding or containment? And are you willing to commit to 21 consecutive days? or at least to test it honestly. If the answer is yes, you can move forward now. If not, honor your pacing and choose a start point that feels realistic. If you feel moved to offer a small public marker, you can write a short phrase in the comments, "Sophia activated." Treat it as symbolic witness, not as proof of anything. It's optional, and silence is just as valid. This invitation carries weight because it asks for honesty. The language of selection, "Sophia selected you," is simply a notice of attention. What matters is not destiny, but decision. You can say yes slowly. You can say not yet. You can step away. All of those choices are respected. What changes things here isn't a magic phrase. It's recognition, embodied repetition, and clear boundaries. If you notice warmth, pressure, or ringing as you complete the sealing practice, remember the safety rule. Rule out medical causes first. If you're cleared and the sensations continue, treat them as signals to slow down, journal, and ground more deeply. If you're ready now, speak the declaration out loud 3 times. Take a deep breath. Visualize the emerald light moving through the 9 centers. Reject the old timeline when needed and close with the grounding phrase. When you finish, write one simple line in your notebook. A word, an image, a number, anything that feels like evidence. Keep it. Come back tomorrow and repeat the process. You were noticed. That notice may not unfold exactly the way the mind expects, but this map gives you a clear test. Can you accept, practice, observe, and choose integration instead of reactivity? Many people who stay with it report a real shift around day 22. If you choose a different path, do so gently. The field continues to speak, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly. Stand in your integrity. Breathe into it. Sophia selected you. That's the notice. How you respond is the work. Thank you for listening, for choosing with clarity, and for taking responsibility for your body and your inner world. And if you stayed until the end, let me know by writing this exact phrase in the comments. Integration over urgency. I've placed another lesson on your screen right now, your next step on this path. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.